One of the beautiful things about this gaming conversation is that it's nice to actually hear people share their opinions because now they share their opinions in the public space. It's very easy for us to be able to hear what it is that they think. We can then assess what they think, and we can also make judgments based on it. Nib95 made a video or claimed that he was going to make a video that exclusivity is beneficial to the consumer. While he made that video, I spent 40 minutes trying to scarf my way through to figure out where he could tell us that exclusivity was beneficial for the consumer. I couldn't find any. In fact, the two reasons that he gave were, oh, well, number one, exclusivity is beneficial because of quality over accessibility, when in reality, you can get both, and we have gotten both from multi-platform games. Then he talked about Final Fantasy VII, which is not a PlayStation game, but a money-hatted game that is now coming to Xbox because apparently it don't almost put those guys in a financial hole. Or at least those guys are talking about wanting to bring it to Xbox, and I'm talking about the creative directors and such. And then he also moved on to say, well, it means blah, 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 console war, blah, 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 never really helping us to see where these benefits are. You won't believe it, ladies and gentlemen. Bro doubled down. In fact, he not only doubled down, he even insulted the detractors and the critics to his, missive, where he said, based on some responses to my, in quote, exclusives benefit the consumers, bro, you didn't tell us anything. I'm being honest. He said, it's clear that a lot of my detractors lack critical thinking ability and logic. So here's a follow-up with more insight. Well, you would not have needed a follow-up if you had actually given us insight because you spent the entire time console warring, and I spent 40 minutes. I genuinely was looking to see where you could go ahead and inform us of this exclusivity benefits to the consumer. And boy, I tell you what, it was hard, to go through all 6 minutes of your video, but in 6 minutes, I spent 44 minutes. 44. Here's the video, ladies and gentlemen. It's 44 minutes, and I couldn't find anything. And now I'm going to have to go through this, doubling down of yours. All right. Let's see what Nib has to say. He may have a point, and I'm just being honest because you never know. There's something I could be missing here. Ooh, it's going to be rough. Let's do it. Anyways.
Reading some of the responses to my last video on exclusives. It
What?
felt like I could feel my IQ dropping reading some of the responses to my last video.
One thing about, life is it's okay to, be normal and everything. This gentleman seems like he feels like he's the smartest person. And I've met really smart people. They don't behave like this. There's a high level of humility with some of the smartest people I've met. Some people are a little more proud about their own intellect, and I've met them too, but they're nothing in comparison to those who actually take up that, ethos, or what do you call it? I think it's pathos. I don't know. Anyways, the ones that are more humble.
On exclusives. Evidently, a sizable contingent of people on X cannot exercise even a modicum.
Stop insulting us and just tell us. Golly, this dude, just tell us.
Of logical critical thinking, so I thought I'd do a follow-up clarifying some things on exclusivity. Firstly,
Why is there a Larian? Why is Larian here with Baldur's Gate 3? Okay, maybe it's just B-roll.
nobody is saying that exclusivity guarantees quality.
Huh? We never said you said exclusivity, guarantees quality. No. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I don't know if anybody said that. You're the one who brought up the quality and accessibility argument. And so we showed you that that is anecdotal because some exclusive games, for instance, Final Fantasy 16 with, poor performance. I mean, I played that thing on a 4090, Ryzen 950, 950X. And the demo, I was like, yeah. Okay, I mean, whatever. I mean, but man, we have it on tape, it's here, right? Then the PlayStation 5 version, do y'all remember when The guys at Digital Foundry said it felt like a mosaic picture, that it was so blurry because whenever you went into 60 FPS mode, the game dropped its resolution down to 720. We didn't forget, but it was built as an exclusive, in quote, which it wasn't. It was just money had it. That's what it was. Because when they advertised the game, they showed you the game's reveal trailer, the Awaken trailer. They showed you the PC version of the game. Let me go ahead and show you, because again, this is how we're going to go ahead and expose this notion as bereft. It's basically anti-consumer and anti-competitive. Now we're going to start seeing even much more deeper depths to this matter. Here it is. The following content is captured on PC emulating the PS5 experience. How is this game exclusive when the PC version is being used to market the game itself? It's just kind of weird. And then the game comes out and the quality in terms of performance is just not there. It's just weird, ladies and gentlemen, that anybody would think that they can categorize this. Maybe this person wants to put wool over our eyes. Keep listening.
Nor that multi-platform games cannot be better than exclusives. In fact,
nobody said you argued that.
Certain
strawman detected.
Multi-platform games are some of the best around, and certain exclusives are awful. Exclusivity merely increases the chances of higher quality, more polish, more platform-specific tech focus, etc., all else being the same.
So it increases the chances. I think you've basically reneged on a portion of your argument. Your argument seemed to basically almost let us know that if you do the game exclusive because you're focused on one technology piece, you pretty much had this, missive that the game was going to just jump out as being fully cooked. Yet you have a Baldur's Gate 3 thing going on there. When the game launched, Act 3 was buggy. I mean, I guess maybe, like I said, it's B-roll. So what is being shown here? So I think one of the things you're seeing is just the benefit focus on a single platform. Here we go again. You can know the technology down to the tiny hardware details and take advantage of them in your engine. Bro, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom was running at 27 FPS, even though Nintendo and its developers who had developed on that platform know the platform in and out. So where are you coming up with the quality? Because if we say it increases the chances, by the time we assess multiple exclusives and look at quality, you're going to realize that it's somewhat hit or miss. In fact, in some cases, the game is shiny. Like, the game is beautiful, performance and everything is fine. But no one just likes the game. That's another subjective aspect of, in quote, quality. Godfall is one of those games. Came out as an exclusive, and now the studio is no longer in business, even after trying to port the game to other platforms. Came out as an Epic Games exclusive and a PS5 exclusive. So again, talking about the technology is not just going to be the place where you stay, because the technology is hit or miss for some. And then you also got to deal with the other side. Do consumers actually even want this exclusive? Or are they going to buy it? Like, PlayStation fans are not really, in the business of buying too many of these exclusives anyways compared to their live service games.
I.e. with the same budget, team size, development time, and so on. The reason for this is studios, resources, time, etc.
Todd Howard says Starfield is not coming to PS5, means more focus and a better product. Todd Howard was basically selling a fugazi. He didn't let the game cook in terms of its performance, so they had to lock it at 30 FPS to launch the game. I think they were trying to get ahead of Marvel Spider-Man 2 with Starfield. That's basically it. That should have been, a very interesting decision that was pretty much cut down by Phil. Phil should have said, nope, let's get the game to 60 FPS before we get it out there. So all that talk about, help us develop a better product, we got to remember that Bethesda has been making multi-platform ports for years and have never taken this position before, which is weird that Todd Howard will come out and say something like that.
Not having to be spread far thinner across multiple platforms and porting, and instead being able to focus on just one.
Bro, these studios that you're showing, these developers that you're actually putting up front here, have all been doing multi-plat development for many years. When all of a sudden did they all now forget and their personality or their identity get, misplaced or lost? Did they wake up with dev amnesia? Like, what's going on that they cannot do the thing that they've been doing for a number of years? And again, like I said in my video, it's all developer dependent because there are many developers that are launching quality games on every platform. In fact, some of their games are not even quality and some are quality. It is what it is. And some exclusives are quality and some are not. So really, I'm trying to find this benefit that you're talking about to the developer and I still can't, to the consumer and I still can't find it. We're a minute in. Tell us, come on.
So when people devoid of critical thinking on X bring up things like Redfall and Forspoken as evidence that the logic is flawed.
No. Those were anecdotes. They brought up, oh, bro. They brought up more than Redfall and Forspoken. They brought up Spider-Man 2, right? They brought up, Final Fantasy, which is not even a PlayStation game, but you keep citing it. Final Fantasy 16, right? Rise of Ronin, was it not an exclusive? Did they not have time over about a year to make the PC port? And what did it show up as when the PC port came out? Performance was bad. There are many games that you can basically point out to that it doesn't really make any sense to. And then you have some that are high-end quality. Even Elden Ring had performance issues and it wasn't multi-plat, but it sold more than Marvel Spider-Man 2, which is supposedly to have come out to have this so-called quality. The whole thing is so hard to track because of gamer preference.
Understand how mind-numbingly illogical that rebuttal is. If Redfall and Forspoken had issues being developed for only 1 or 2 platforms, how do you think they would have fared if they had to be developed and simultaneously released on 5 platforms instead?
It's a skill issue because Avalanche Software, the folk who developed, Hogwarts Legacy, were able to execute on all the platforms that they promised to deliver on. However, they had to pretty much go ahead and take their time and, basically break down their development. Or you can just point out to the devs that do Call of Duty. Every year, they'll guarantee their platforms receiving their games. They'll blow the money, but it's a high-selling game. For them, the process is not a problem. The developers who made Forspoken, the process probably almost broke them. The only difference is they didn't come out like the Baldur's Gate developer to tell you that same ship almost became sunk ship. Because again, everyone's got their capabilities and their focus. But again, even though they had developed for all platforms, it would not have made any difference because the PC port, which I actually own, I bought a GPU and they bundled it in, and the PlayStation port just were poor. That doesn't mean anything. Quality is all subjective to how much time the developers are given to execute on what it is they want to execute on and maybe scoping their game accordingly. This is all a skill issue for, I wouldn't say not necessarily only skill issue, but also, developer based and publisher based.
Think about it. Naturally, if their budgets, manpower, development time, etc. had to be split across even more platforms, the games would have fared even worse. It's probably not a coincidence that the worst reviewed mainline Final Fantasy games happen to be the multi-platform ones.
These are not PlayStation games though, and where is the benefit to the consumer? Are you not given more of a insight to how exclusivity benefits the consumer? All I see here is you just running interference for why, some exclusive games got technical, improvements or whatnot and what. We're a minute and 47 seconds in and nothing yet. I got to do 11 minutes of this, bruh.
Being Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy 15. And in fact, we actually know from interviews and post-release reporting that the move to multi-platform development was one of the reasons for the issues with Final Fantasy 13. Now, if you notice, even without any exclusivity deals in place, Square Enix still staggers the PC releases of their multi-platform Final Fantasy games, no doubt to ease development pressures.
Square Enix still makes they still make Tomb Raider games that they launch simultaneously and everywhere else. It's all game by game dependent. You can say Final Fantasy, I can say Tomb Raider, and it will still be Square Enix that's basically making them both. What's going on here? You can say this and I can say Avengers. You can say that and I can say this. And it's like,
It's likely another reason they were more willing to accept PlayStation's exclusivity deals on 16 and 7 Remake.
then how about Warner Brothers and Capcom? Who simply just go ahead and just eat it up and just do a good job in some cases or suck in some cases when it comes to performance or even the acceptance of their games. It's so hit or miss. I don't even know how he can continue trying to make this argument over and over again.
It's estimated less than 10% of Final Fantasy 15's sales were on Xbox, plus they already staggered the PC release anyway, so why not just take Sony's money?
Even with a staggered release, Final Fantasy 16 on PC had performance issues. Even with a staggered release, God of War Ragnarok had performance issues. It was Daniel Owen who came out and started to talk about some of the challenges in performance for the PC version of Final Fantasy 16 that got the developers thinking, oh wow, where is it? Daniel Owen, God of War Ragnarok, right? When he was talking about some of the issues and such that the game had, I watched that entire video, which is later. Does performance tank later in the game? And he did a PC analysis and was able to go ahead and start seeing the issues, and the developers started working on adjusting their game. Even when Santa Monica worked with the studio on a staggered release to get the game out about 2 years later. I don't see where you're making the point. Even your point that you're not even, that you're trying to make, which is beside the point that you're supposed to make, is still one that can be easily countered. You probably perhaps have not studied this, subject matter. And so you're dancing around Final Fantasy and Square Enix and, these games that you're talking about over here. And you still haven't even made your case as to why exclusives benefits consumers.
Final Fantasy 15, for example, released on consoles in 2016 and PC in 2018. Again, no exclusivity deal in place. Staggering releases to aid in development isn't exactly a new thing. Grand Theft Auto 6 is doing something similar with PC. They did the same with Red Dead 2.
But these are not exclusives, though. What is he talking about?
Games like Baldur's Gate 3
It's not an exclusive.
Released on PC first, then PS5, then Xbox. Black Myth Wukong still isn't available on Xbox.
It's not an exclusive, though.
These things happen because ultimately multi-platform development is hard.
Yes, but developers have been doing it for the longest time. The developers who did Lies of P, they did a flawless multi-platform release. Game came out pretty good. Don't try to make it be the size of the studio or whatever it is. There are different games that follow different parameters. If you scope your game right, if you plan very well, you can do a multi-platform release. And you can do it just right. Like, we cannot just sit here and try to pretend, multi-platform. No. Even when we look at just the Game Pass, no. We have to actually do this because he's trying to use this anecdotal piece of the puzzle. No. That's not going to work. If we look at even the Game Pass games right now that are going to be coming pretty soon, you'll realize that Atomfall by Rebellion, even their Sniper Elite game, Resistance, that's already here, and then think about Expedition 33, these games are all multi-platform games. Yakuza developers, I must say this because for every one developer that you can point that's doing staggered development, I can point to 2 or 3 that's doing pretty much multi-platform, shipping on the exact same time and do it frequently well. The developers that do Yakuza games, man, they are killing it. The folk under Focus Interactive that do a lot of the Warhammer games or whatever it is, now some of them will go, as exclusives to, I think one of them is an exclusive to Xbox. But Focus Interactive games like A Plague's Tale, and a lot of the others, they show up day one everywhere. I don't see where, I cannot see where you're going with this, which is not even addressing the situation just yet.
And porting isn't easy. Generally, porting a newer AAA title can take a team of developers, 8 months to over a year.
The folks who did the port for Inotria, they spent 2 months doing it. See, I don't know, Nib, man. Hold on. They said we spent 2 months, porting this game. I made a video about it. It's right here. Where they blame Microsoft for not listening to them, blah, 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 blah. After they had talked about how the Xbox port was developed and then they jumped back into it. They said when Microsoft was not responding to them, I remember when they were like, oh no, come on, someone help. Oh, here it is. Games Radar actually pointed out to the tweet or something. And maybe they may have had a link to it here. They were said in a tweet. Okay, let's go ahead and look at that tweet here. Blah 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 blah. I think it was in this thread. Go look at the thread yourself. I can't find a tweet. And man, we got to get to this video where he tells us how exclusivity is beneficial for the consumers. They talked about how they spent like I think 3 months or so making the Xbox port. Now, every game is different. Every game has its differences, but that's what an API is designed to do. It's designed to help you get your port, on the platform very easily. So I don't understand what we're talking about here.
Just to port the one game. So the added workload for multi-platform development or porting can be fairly substantial.
And also can be easily rewarded if the game does well and sells multiple copies on that platform. But still, though, where are the benefits to the consumer?
And even when multiple versions of games are developed simultaneously, there's still a ton of development, iteration, testing, and so on. Ultimately, you don't get ports to different platforms with the click of a button, like some fools on X seem to think. And despite PS...
Dude, you were the one who said that video games are developed on the development kit and not on PC. You actually made a very critical error in talking about the technological piece. Don't call the people who were basically trying to challenge your own notion fools. That's the problem. Do not get into ad hominems. It doesn't really help the conversation. You can actually make and pretty much package a game if you have the API on hand and make the necessary changes. The console versions of most games and the PC versions are pretty much the same. In fact, if you listen to Digital Foundry, when they're actually analyzing their videos, you hear that some games are basically the same version. In terms of functionality and such, like how it's going to work with the controller, those little things that we want actually are provided by the API or within the engine to be able to give those functionality pieces. Should the developer wants to go ahead and add them to the game, they can add those, features and such. It's not rocket science for them, especially the fact that they've been doing it for many, many years. The PS5 and the Series X are not the first generation. Goodness gracious, they were making these games multi-plat in the last generation, the PS4 generation, and they were pumping the games out if the studios actually knew what they were doing. Ubisoft launched 4 games in 2020 when many developers were basically postponing and delaying games. That was when we got, I think it was Watch Dogs, it was, what's the name of that? Immortals Phoenix Rising, it was Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and then there was another game that it was 3 games they launched almost in 1 quarter around that same time, because they use a very, very interesting process. It's expensive, but man, their game comes out, in most cases, performs well. In fact, Ubisoft, if I go through Ubisoft's library and we look at the performance of their games, you're going to be quite surprised. It's going to really surprise you how your notion is basically bankrupt. I don't know where you're getting this from, but this is not an argument that I'm going to keep listening.
5 and Series X hardware having similarities, there are still massive differences too. From
massive,
the GPU memory and I/O setup, the way decompression is handled. Hell, they use entirely different API. Xbox.
Well, they use different API, obviously, but massive from a hardware perspective. Not what Digital Foundry put together. They both use, AMD 47 and 4800, architecture, which when you look at sorry, no, man. If he wants to make a technical argument, which is still not, again, guys, we're still waiting. We're still waiting for him to tell us, exactly. Digital Foundry, Xbox kit. We're still waiting for him to tell us, where this notion is from. So here on this video, right, Richard Ledbetter is talking about the development kits. This is the 4800S. They basically took the Xbox Series X chip and mounted it on a board that has access to the power, configuration that you can use to build a PC. It was China only. They did this for the Xbox Series X chips that were basically defective, just like they did with the PlayStation chips that were also defective as well. If you watch this video, you're going to see the PlayStation 5 version as well, when they actually went ahead and did the comparison. I can't scroll fast enough, but the video is right here. Just go ahead and look it up. You see it. So from a hardware perspective, there ain't nothing really that, there's nothing actually. Oh, there it is. This is a PS5 main board right here. And then they converted it. Wow, that's weird. And they converted it to a 4700S desktop kit. So pretty much taking that, PS5 CPU surrounded by its own RAM configuration made by AMD, by the way. So, Nib, what differences other than API differences and functionality that I've talked about in terms of save state and stuff? There's actually a gentleman who actually was giving he made a video. Oh man, goodness gracious. I don't know. I'm 23 minutes in, but let's keep going. I might stop at some point. He said how to ship on PlayStation. He used to be an Unreal Engine evangelist. Basically, he worked with Unreal Engine, and he made a series of videos on how to go ahead and package your game to, on some of the tips to package your game for PlayStation, right? And when he made those videos, I have it in a playlist somewhere, and I can't start pulling all this receipts in it right now. It's just stuff that he hasn't said yet. And when he was talking about the packaging and export settings and things that you need to, make sure for the PlayStation, he pretty much gives a layout on these are the things that you need. And believe you me, I was shocked. I was like, that's all? And that was all. So all this that he's about to run you through, Nib, you don't do game development. I would quickly stay away from this convo if I were you. It doesn't help your case because you still have not told us how exclusives benefit the consumer.
Uses DirectX and PS5, the completely bespoke and proprietary AGC for low level and AGCX for high level. First,
bro, if you get it in an engine like Unreal Engine, I know you want to talk about all that stuff. All you do is go to File, you select Package or Build, and it'll give you a bunch of options. There are options for iOS and Android that come, and Windows and Linux that come natively on the engine. And if you have the API that is for Xbox or PlayStation, that also will give you those options as well. And you literally will click Build. I'm for the Unreal Engine side, I know that. I don't know about the others, but on this side, it literally is that straightforward. But you have to have made your changes within your game to support that particular ecosystem. All this talk is just so weird. Anyways, okay, so it says exclusivity and the return on investment. How does that benefit the consumer?
First of all, we need to make an important distinction between third-party publishers and console platforms.
Well, do y'all remember that in the video that I've made, I said one of the first weaknesses that I see for his argument is that he does not differentiate between first-party exclusives and third-party exclusives, which already puts him in a really weird place. So that basically opened up the door for everybody to now have and throw anecdotal number of games on him. Listen, I said it right here. I made a video. Yes, it's on his Twitter page. And his premise is that exclusives benefit the consumer. But in evaluating the video, there's something that is missing so far. What's missing is he does not differentiate between first-party exclusivity and third-party exclusivity. I said that. So he already now is wanting to go back and say, now we need to first go about third-party and then console, blah, 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 blah. Now he wants to make the distinction on the far end of having not even told us how exclusivity benefits the consumer.
AGC for low level and AGCX for high level. First of all, we need to make an important distinction between third-party publishers and console platforms. It's true that third-party publishers stand to make more money releasing games on more platforms. Hence, exclusivity isn't really desirable for them. Which begs the question, why would a third-party publisher choose to make a game exclusive?
Because they were given money to just basically, in some cases, block the game from going to Xbox. Okay. Here. Perlabis refuses exclusivity deal with PlayStation. Crimson Desert developers respond to reports it turned down Sony's PS5 exclusivity deal that would have blocked Xbox release for a year. Has nothing to do with technical whatever, and because Crimson Desert developers do multi-platform development. Rise of Ronin's developers with their game is just an exclusivity requirement designed to just block the game from going to Xbox. That's all it is. They even said when the whole thing was being, because this particular blog that was actually written by the South Korean financial blogger who basically detailed everything, he said that even the developers at ShiftUp, because of their lack of experience in the market, they decided to go with Sony. But ShiftUp's game, when it first was revealed, Project Eve, it had an Xbox logo on there. Right? And then the Final Fantasy one I just showed you guys, where the game, at the time, when you look at the trailer, hold on. At the time, when you look at the trailer, right, you'll see that it tells you that it's being shown with how do you even put it? It's being shown with it's being displayed with a PC emulating the PS5 experience. Go look at the first Project Eve trailer and see if you can. Okay, let me see. There it is. This is the first one that was first unveiled. When you go to the end of the trailer, you see that there's an Xbox logo right here, Xbox One. It was as Xbox One, PS4, PS4 Pro, Unreal Engine, ShiftUp. In many cases, it's not because they cannot ship multi-platform. It's that PlayStation goes in there to block those games from going to Xbox.
Or simply put, generally they wouldn't. Though there are scenarios they might, such as one, they had to stagger the release to aid development and launch cadence. 2, porting was too difficult for certain hardware.
Yo, don't put Black Myth Wukong on there, bro. Nib, that's the reason you blocked the Turk. When he showed you from a hardware perspective, handicapping different variations of hardware that game could run, because I still suspect, and I'm not saying it's definitive, that game was basically locked down by PlayStation away from Xbox. I still suspect that because of the way the hardware actually performed. When we pretty much, again, I just showed you that what you have inside of this PS5 and Series X, they're basically hardware pieces that are made by AMD, right? So we kind of know how they behave. Different conversation anyways.
Not worth the compromise. For example, Call of Duty on Switch. 3, they were offered a big money bag by a platform holder for exclusivity. And 4, it's a title they didn't think would sell very well on a particular platform. Hence, the return on investment wasn't worth the development effort and cost.
Well, which is weird because some developers quickly did a reverse on that real quick, like the developers of Inotria, who were like, yeah, we're going to go prioritize another version, blah, blah, blah. Oh, no, nobody's going to buy our game. Xbox, come please. We love you. Come buy our game, please.
As I discussed in my previous...
Oh, okay, wait, hold on. Some publishers reportedly not sure why they should keep supporting Xbox. Oh, this was when they were all talking about those phantom devs that kept saying it's not worth porting their games to Xbox before we saw Final Fantasy developers and all these devs finally say, oh, no, we want to publish an Xbox. This was the fomenting of the Xbox tax around, beginning or middle of 2024. This particular point, Nib, is one that doesn't hold any water because when we asked about the devs who said that, not a single dev could come out and say anything. It was like, oh, it was based on anonymity. Or some developers that were hoping they'd get a Game Pass deal because they wanted Xbox to carry them. And then they found out, oh no, Xbox is basically now owning big games and is not going to be pumping all this money to anybody, every Tom, Dick, and Harry out there. And so now they started to whine and cry.
Development effort and cost. As I discussed in my previous video, it's a completely different consideration for console platform holders. The reason platform holders subsidize exclusives with massive budgets, often exceeding even many AAA multi-platform games, is because they're not just interested in their sales, but for the ability of exclusives to sell consoles.
What benefit does that give to the consumer. This is all the benefits to the developer, to the publisher, to the platform holder, to then sell more consoles, thereby bring in more users so that those users can spend more money, and then the platform holder gets 30%, and then you claim that they then invest that 30% into more titles. But seeing as even those who come on the platform are playing more third-party games and not entirely buying these single-player games as much as they would like to be able to even justify, say, even DLC or sequels. In the case of DLC, they canceled the Marvel Spider-Man DLC after we saw the leak that it was a thing, or they wanted to do it, and we even got video footage of it as a thing, and then also went ahead and did not greenlight a Days Gone Part 2. So what exactly is this benefit to the developers that you are trying to pull here? I can't see it.
Or incentivize consumers coming to their ecosystem instead of the competitors, e.g. buy a PS5 instead of an Xbox or a Switch. And then once a new consumer is brought into their ecosystem, they get a 30% cut from every single transaction they ever make.
It's more like 20% for some. Relax.
Hence, the return on investment is entirely different with exclusives for platform holders versus third-party publishers. For platform holders, funding exclusives is more of a broader investment, and we as consumers benefit. We get massive budgets for games built from the ground up solely for the hardware that we purchase, maximizing the hardware and design focus instead of resources and teams having to be spread far thinner across multiple different platforms with potentially compromised tech or design.
That is a non sequitur. Simply because third-party developers also spend massive budgets to do and develop games that have proven to be even more influential, impactful, and critical than PlayStation exclusives. Am I wrong to say that Elden Ring, its launch, absolutely clouded the launch of Horizon Forbidden West? I'm not wrong. We saw it happen. In fact, Elden Ring rubbed even other third-party developers the wrong way because of how successful it was with its simplicity and its capability of just letting the gamer actually play the game and figure the game out. Did you forget that former developers from EA, some from Ubi, some from Guerrilla were all reeling about how, oh, look at what gamers are loving. No UI, no blah, blah, blah. Big budget. It's this. It doesn't have this, but gamers love it. No lore. What?
Because of a less singular focus. If you want to know why Xbox is moving away from this exclusives and console exclusives first sort of strategy of the kind employed by PlayStation and Nintendo to a very, very strong effect,
What? PlayStation and Xbox are basically equals when it comes to their exclusivity paradigm, except for the fact that PlayStation is doing what Xbox started doing 8 years ago. That's it. PlayStation is still 8 years behind where Xbox is in the way they actually go with multi-platform by moving their games to PC. In some cases, day and date for the live service and some single-player games. And then in other cases, they used to delay it for 2 years. Now they're shortening it with the case of Marvel Spider-Man being short. PlayStation is not executing the same kind of exclusivity that Nintendo is. This is an obfuscation or an attempt to obfuscate what is going on here.
Instead, more of a sort of full multi-platform third-party publishing strategy, then watch my previous video in which I go over this.
No. Tell us why exclusives benefit the consumers. You still haven't made a case that can stand on its own leg.
So is there actually any data or evidence that highlights the potential benefits of exclusives from a design, quality, and tech perspective?
We don't care because that's not what your argument is. Your argument is that exclusives benefit the consumer. And in this video, halfway through, you've only made one case that the third-party side of the development basically bodies all day, every day. Bro, we're 40 minutes in, man. I don't know if we'll get anything from here. If we do, then we must be really fortunate for His Royal Majesty You know, the Grand Duke Nib has finally graced us with something that we, you know, oh goodness gracious, there is no argument here. You guys know that, right? There is no argument here. But I love that, you know, he wants to attempt. Maybe there is an argument. I shouldn't say there is no argument. I take that back. Perhaps there's an argument here that has not necessarily been presented, and he hasn't presented the argument, and I'm trying to find my way, you know, to there. And yes, you know, I have to give a lot of context because he's pointing out these things, and I'm like, well, look at the industry. Here are all these other things. All right. Thanks for watching the video. Appreciate you all so much. Peace out.